In 30 years on this bench, I have seen arrogance walk through that door in every form imaginable. But nothing prepared me for Marcus Thorne. Marcus Thorne, 34 years old, founder of Novatech Industries, net worth $6.8 billion. He walked into my courtroom like he owned it, because in his mind, he owned everything. His suit cost more than most people's monthly rent. His watch was worth $400,000, and he had 6 attorneys standing behind him, like a personal army, 6. He sat down at the defendant's table and immediately pulled out his phone. In my courtroom, before I had even spoken a single word, "Mr. Thorne." I said it calmly, "Put the phone away, please." He sighed like a teenager being asked to do homework, pocketed the phone slowly, deliberately slowly, and then he rolled his eyes. In my courtroom, I have been on this bench for 30 years. Nobody rolls their eyes at me. Nobody. But before I could respond, I needed him to understand why he was here. Because this story does not begin with arrogance. It begins with a woman named Elena Vasquez. Elena was 58 years old. She had worked as a senior software engineer at Novatech for 11 years. 11 years of her life. She had helped build the very algorithm that became the backbone of Novatech's most profitable product. She had worked nights. She had worked weekends. She had missed birthdays and anniversaries and school plays because Marcus Thorne needed results. And she delivered every single time. In return, Elena had been promised 40,000 shares of company stock. It was in her contract. Signed and dated, at current market value, those shares were worth $9 million. $9 million Elena had earned with 11 years of her life. Then one morning, 7 days before her equity fully vested, Elena was called into a meeting. She was told her position was being eliminated. She was handed a paper to sign on the spot. The paper asked her to surrender every penny of her equity in exchange for 3 months' salary. And if she refused to sign, she would be sued for $2 million for allegedly stealing company information. Elena did not sign because she knew what she had built and she knew what she was owed. Her case landed in my courtroom 8 months later, and Marcus Thorne decided to show up in person, which was the worst decision of his life. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne." "Yeah, morning." That is how he addressed me. "Yeah, morning, no, Your Honor, no respect." Just the casual dismissal of a man who had never once been held accountable for anything. I reviewed the documents before me. "Mr. Thorne, you terminated Miss Vasquez 1 week before $9 million vested in her name." His response came smooth and practiced. "She failed to meet performance standards, Your Honor. It was a contractual decision." I looked at him carefully. I have reviewed 11 years of Elena Vasquez's performance records. Not a single review rated her below exceptional. Not one. "How do you explain that?" He glanced at his attorneys. "Performance standards evolve." "I see. And these new standards were communicated to her in writing?" He paused. "It is documented in our filings." "Your filings," I said, "were prepared 8 months after her termination. There is no documentation of any performance concern raised with Ms. Vasquez during her entire 11 years of employment. Not one written warning, not one formal conversation, nothing." Marcus adjusted his cufflinks. "HR handles those matters, Your Honor." Then I picked up a document from the folder in front of me. "Mr. Thorne, I am looking at an internal Novatech email written 3 weeks before Ms. Vasquez's termination. The subject line reads, 'Vasquez equity exposure, mitigation strategy.'" He went completely still. I began to read. "Elena's vesting date is approaching, and the equity value represents a significant financial liability. We have identified a contractual provision that may provide grounds for termination. HR should begin documenting performance concerns immediately so we have a paper trail. Recommend moving quickly given the timeline. I put the document down. The courtroom was completely silent. Mr. Thorne, this email instructs your HR department to fabricate a performance record in order to deny an employee $9 million she contractually earned. Is that standard corporate practice in your company? His composure cracked just slightly. Your Honor, he said, I have built a $6 billion company. I have created 12,000 jobs. I generate more tax revenue for this state than almost any other private employer. I think that context deserves some consideration here. It deserves none, I said, not when it comes to fraud. And that is when it happened, the moment that silenced every single person in my courtroom. Marcus Thorne leaned forward. His voice dropped. And he said something that in 30 years on this bench, I had never once heard from a defendant. Your Honor, I donate more to this city every year than this courthouse costs to operate. I could buy this building, I could buy this bench, and everything attached to it. And right now, I am seriously considering it just to convert it into something more useful. The courtroom erupted. One of his own attorneys put his head in his hands. Elena Vasquez closed her eyes. I did not raise my voice. I never raise my voice. I do not need to. Mr. Thorne, stand up. He stood. You have just threatened a sitting judge in open court. That is now part of the official record. His attorney jumped up immediately. Your Honor, he was speaking rhetorically. He did not mean. He was not speaking rhetorically, I said. He was speaking from complete certainty that his money places him above this court. I am about to show him that it does not. Mr. Thorne, you walked into my courtroom today like this was a transaction, like you could deploy enough lawyers and enough confidence and simply walk out the other side untouched. I understand why you thought that. It has probably worked before, but not here, not in this room. In this room, Elena Vasquez, with her 11 years of faithful service and her $9 million of stolen equity, is worth exactly the same as you. Not $6.8 billion worth, exactly the same. On the charge of breach of contract. This court finds in favor of Elena Vasquez. Novatech is ordered to immediately transfer all 40,000 shares of equity at current market value on the charge of wrongful termination. Novatech is ordered to pay an additional $2 million in compensatory damages on the charge of fraud. This matter is referred immediately to the Rhode Island Attorney General and the United States Department of Labor for criminal investigation. The countersuit against Ms. Vasquez is dismissed with prejudice. Every cent of her legal fees reimbursed within 30 days. And for contempt of court, Mr. Thorne, a fine of $250,000 payable immediately. Marcus Thorne stood at that table and said nothing. For the first time in his life, he had absolutely nothing to say. No phone, no clever argument, no attorney to save him, just silence and accountability. Elena Vasquez received every dollar she was owed, her equity, her damages, her legal fees, and the lawsuit designed to destroy her was erased from existence. Because in the eyes of justice, it never should have existed at all. People ask me what keeps me coming back to this bench after 30 years. The answer is simple. It is moments like this one, when someone who has been made to feel invisible stands in front of me. And I get to tell them, I see you, I hear you, and in this room, you matter. If this story moved you, subscribe right now and leave your thoughts below. I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next case.